Meteorologist Herb Stevens, a skiing weatherman with SnoCountry's pattern overview, and this is for the week starting Tuesday the 10th. Now, last week's report had the wrong date on it, and I apologize for that, but I got the date right today. It's the 10th, and we're going to take a look at the next 2 to 3 weeks. For skiers and riders in the western U.S. and western Canada, and maybe we can conjure up something that constitutes positive news, because there hasn't been much of it in recent weeks, that's for darn sure. This report is brought to you by UVEX Sports, and the headline is quite simply, can we catch a break in the West? And right now, Old Man Winter's on spring break, pretty much from coast to coast, because there are no major Arctic air masses in place across the country. It's still a little bit cool in northern New England, but that's about it. In fact, we have some rain moving up into the Ohio Valley and unfortunately into the central Appalachians. But in the west of that line, man, there's nothing going on. If we take a look at the close-up of the western third of the country, there are no watchers or warnings or advisories. And if we look at the satellite picture, we can see why. There's hardly a cloud in the sky. All the white that you see here in Wyoming, Colorado, and Utah, to Idaho and western Montana, this is snow. And you can see the Sierra sitting right there in east central California. Now, this looks promising initially when you look offshore and you see all of this cloudiness, all of this moisture. Could this possibly be the major breakthrough we've been looking for? But if we look at the jet stream map, we see that we have a major ridge still in the path of any storm that's offshore. And yes, there is some moisture offshore. Yes, it is going to come onshore, but a lot of its energy is going to be dissipated trying to beat down this ridge. And what that's going to do is reduce the overall impact of the storm that comes ashore. In fact, there'll be nothing more than some scattered snow showers tomorrow around Tahoe, and maybe up northwest of the lake they'll get a few inches at the higher elevations. The snow levels are going to be above 7,000 feet, but this is not going to be a big deal. Some of the energy is going to break through the ridge and get into the mountains of Utah, and that will probably happen later Wednesday into Thursday with a couple of inches there, and snow levels 6,500 to 7,000 feet. The surface map shows why there's nothing going on. High pressure is dominating not only aloft with the ridge in the west, but also at the surface. We go ahead to Thursday afternoon, and you see that the little piece of the offshore storm is still intact as it goes through the mountains of Utah and into Colorado. And again, due to the weakness of this disturbance, the amounts here that are generated by this are going to be a couple of inches, and that's about it, and the snow levels will be relatively high. Some of this energy is actually going to move down into Old Mexico and consolidate with a trough that's hanging around down there. And if we forward to Sunday, notice that this trough gets stronger down here in Old Mexico, but I want you to first take a look at this southwesterly flow and this shading of gray here in British Columbia and on the waters offshore, because this is a system that's going to try and knock down the top of the ridge, at least temporarily, and I think that bodes well for some moderate amounts of snow in the Washington Cascades coming up on Sunday. There'll be some snow on Saturday as well, but I think these snow levels will be in the vicinity of 5,500 to 6,000 feet, and then on Sunday, as this thing translates eastward and draws a little more cold air into the mountains, the snow levels will be dropping down to 4,000 to 4,500 feet, and maybe we can get 4 to 8 inches out of this. But in a year where snow is so hard to come by, baby, we'll take it. It looks as though it'll be a little too warm down in the Oregon Cascades for much below 7,000 feet or so, and also further away from the center of the storm. The system's going to be weaker, so the snowfall amounts will probably be a little bit lighter as well. Now, over the course of the next 7 days, this is the way the GFS model breaks out snowfall. You can see some light amounts here in the Sierra. The northern Cascades have a few bullseyes at the higher elevations. Some of the mountains in Idaho, western Montana, down to Jackson Hole, you're looking at light to perhaps moderate amounts, a little bit in the Wasatch to little to get excited about. And in Colorado, it's going to be tough. Thursday and Friday, there'll be some light snow in these mountains, but no big systems are in store. And the Canadian model has pretty much the same breakdown. They don't have it doesn't have the ability to resolve the smaller scale features, so it doesn't print as much snow, and it doesn't have the bullseyes, but the distribution geographically is pretty similar to the GFS. So let's look ahead to the Canadian ensemble 7 days down the road. A new trough will be developing in the east. And that means trouble because a new ridge will be developing in the west. There's that piece of energy hanging around in old Mexico. But there is some hope because if you'll notice, with the ridge up here in BC up to Alaska, there's actually room for some energy to break underneath this ridge. And the Canadian ensembles are suggesting that a broad trough may try and do that sometime after St. Patrick's Day. So we'll be looking at the possibility of some snow basically south of Interstate 70 and then 80 over to Tahoe. But that's a week away. But that's our next best hope for significant snowfall. Canadian ensembles at 10 days still hints that some troughing is going to try and come ashore. Meanwhile, the ridge dominates the northern Rockies and the Cascades, and the setup is fairly similar when we get to 15 days. And again, the northwestern part of the region is going to be really hard-pressed to get any significant snowfall, while the southern half of this western region I'm talking about does have some potential for snowfall. But again, the manifestation of that is at least a week away. So here's the reason why, and this is something we've harped on through the winter, and you've probably heard in other circles. These warm waters just to the west of the United States and Canada, they support the idea of a ridge in the western United States, and the complementary trough is found further east in North America, and those water temperatures aren't going to dissipate anytime soon, so the tendency, the overwhelming tendency, will be for the ridging, and that's going to make it harder to get any sort of a consistently snowy pattern. And now, as we get into mid-March, we're starting to run out of time. So make the most of the days you can get on the slopes. There'll be a lot of bluebird skies in the short term, a little bit of light snow here and there. Don't forget your sunscreen because of the sun angles being so high. And my summary indicates that only weak systems are going to bless us with any snow in the first week or so. There's a better shot, as I mentioned, in the northern Cascades, perhaps the far northern Rockies this weekend. The ridge just won't break down because those water temperatures won't go away, and we are probably going to see some undercutting of that western ridge next week through the southern Sierra and into the southern Rockies. That's our best bet. Let's keep our fingers crossed. In the meantime, enjoy your sliding. Thank you for watching, and once again, this segment of the Skiing Weatherman for SnoCountry has been brought to you by UVEX Sports. Take care.